Welcome to the Formalize tutorial video about saved views. Saved views are actually a critical part of any moderately advanced Formalize application. Saved views let you tailor what people are interacting with so that, well, they don't have to just find their way through the data themselves. You can save all of the configuration options you've made in the list here, whether it's sorting or search terms or changing the scope or even calculations that you've activated. You can save all of those different things so that people can can interact with them. So one of the examples we had in the search video, if you look at the search video, it'll run through all the different various search options. One was let's find entries that have a date that is at least 14 days in the past or more recently. So that will in fact find all the entries here, but what this means is it'll be a rolling window. So when a month from now, when someone calls up this view, it will be looking 2 weeks in the past from that day, rather than 2 weeks in the past from this current date. The today keyword is relative to the actual time at the moment the view is loaded. So we can give people a 14-day view into the past at any given moment. And let's also maybe what do we want to show people? Well, we want to show maybe we need to show the date, because that's critical to the information that we're giving them, and maybe the type of animal and the total number. Maybe those are the key things. And the photos. Let's do that. So there we go. Here's our choice of columns, and if there is a photo, people could click on it to download. It's going to be entries, sightings that were made in the past 14 days, and this is the information that's available and it's all users in all groups. So let's save this view. Now I'm logged in right now as a supervisor. I'm logged in as Simon, one of the supervisors. So if what I can do is I can use the settings that I've made to save a new view. When the view is selected, only show entries by all groups. That's fine. I want to review everything in the last 14 days. Publish this view. Yes, let's publish this to other supervisors. I want other supervisors to be able to use this view as well, and leaving the controls locked. Yeah, let's just leave that on. Normally you would leave that on. There's a note here about locking the controls. To some extent, that's superseded by some of the newer features to do with how you have a lot more control now over how you configure a screen and what options you turn on and off. But locking the controls briefly is a way to it's a sort of a safety net thing, that if someone is interacting with a view that shows them entries that they wouldn't normally see. Suppose this view shows everyone in all groups, but you're publishing it to a group that doesn't normally see all groups, then locking the controls just ensures that they're not going to be able to fiddle with or interact with those entries that they wouldn't normally see. They can see the view that you've given them, but they can't do more than that. They can't delete the information. They can't interact with the entries. So it's a safety net, and it's normally fine to leave it on. It's really only in some very peculiar situations. If you wanted somebody to interact with an element that they didn't normally see, then you would say, no, don't lock the controls. Just let people who are in that situation do whatever they want with the entries, but it's probably not going to affect you. So we'll just leave it like this. Saving a new view. It's the scope of this view is everybody in all groups, and that's based on the current one here. If we had a different choice as the view there, then our options here would be different. Publish to supervisors. Save that. Let's call it sightings. Is that right? Sightings in the last 14 days. Okay, so there we go. And presto. Okay, now we see we have, under the current view, we have a saved view and a published view. Yeah, saved views are ones that you've created yourself. And whether or not you can publish views, you can always make your own views and save them. So this saves you a step. If you were just coming back to this form tomorrow or at another time, you can just pull up the view and it automatically changes to the columns and the search and all the settings that you had in place. Also, the same view is showing up under published views because this view is published to all supervisors. Simon, who I'm currently logged in with his account, Simon is a supervisor, so all supervisors see this view under the list of published views. And because this was created by Simon, he sees it under Save Views as well because it belongs to him. So, but it's the same view in each case. It's actually loading the same settings. Save views can include they include sorting. They can include calculations as well. Maybe we want to do the total number of animals. Excuse me. Maybe we want to do a sum total on this column. So let's add that and perform that calculation. For more information about calculations, there's a whole video about that can walk you through it. And yeah, what we get here is the sum total of all the total animals that were seen within this period. So basically in the last 14 days, here's all the animals that have been seen, and if we switch to the calculations, it's showing us the grand total. Now, just an interesting note about when you save views, depending on which side you're on, so to speak, whether you're on the calculation side or the entries side, that will be the active side for the view when it's loaded. It just depends where you save it. So I can for example go to save this view now. Now it knows that the most recently loaded view was sightings in the last 14 days. So it's suggesting maybe I want to replace that view. It knows that I loaded that view and I did some things, so maybe now that I'm saving again, I want to update that view. So my default choice is replace that one. I'm updating it. But if you want to, you could save a new view independent of sightings in the last 14 days. Maybe you made some changes and you want to save this as a separate distinct view. So you could do that too. But I'll just leave it as replace for now. And you got the same scoping choices, the same publishing options. Save it. You can rename it at any time. If you wanted to change the name, you can. And then just click the button, and there we go. So sightings in the last 14 days. Now it calls up the calculations. So if we were to come back in here, just to demonstrate, and we switch to sightings in the last 14 days, because when we saved the view most recently, it was saved with the calculation showing. That's what it's going to show us. But if we switch to the entries, all the same settings are still in effect, same search, same columns visible, and so on. Now you may have noticed that I called up the view and then I did something. I switched to this other side, and anytime you start making a change to the view, it's not, you may have noticed it doesn't say that I'm on sightings in the last 14 days anymore, because well, I've actually changed something. Sightings in the last 14 days, its current state, or it's saved, the last state it was in when it was saved was with the calculations showing. And I made a change. I jumped over to the entries side now. So I'm looking at something that's a little different than that saved view. So the current view list switches at that moment, and it says, okay, you're not looking at sightings in the last 14 days anymore. What you're looking at is, entries by all users in all groups, with this search term and with these columns visible. So it's just basically updating, instead of the name of the saved view, because there's been a change, it's now showing you what the underlying scope is that view has. But just like before, if I click save, it knows that maybe that's the view that you are working with, and maybe you just want to change it and resave it. And in fact, I think I will. So there we go. But the calculation is still there, and if somebody wanted to switch back over to see that, they certainly could. So that's a few of the things that you can do with saved views. They're really they're quite useful with the use of today, and also the use of the user keyword. You can look up in there for a cheat sheet about search terms if you click that question mark, or if you watch the search video, you'll learn all about different search options. And certainly with the today keyword or the user keyword, which will make things based on the user who's currently logged in, and also if you set views to have the scope entries by all users, or rather, it's not available to the supervisors. It's only we didn't give supervisors the ability to have a group scope view, but if you've watched the permissions video, there's an intermediate level between entries by me and entries by people in all groups. You can also have entries by people, only entries by people in the same group as you. That's an intermediate step. So there's more details on that in the permissions video. So as you get the interaction between all these different features in Formalize, and then you save that package of features and settings in a view, you can end up with some very dynamic behaviors for users that will respond to the time of day, or who the user is, or what groups the user is a member of. And so that can create you can create these single views and packages of information, which for all the different users in your site could behave quite differently for them. So that's a brief overview of saved views. We'll return to those a bit more when we look at some of the screen settings that are possible, because what you can do is you can actually control what the default screen is when a form or a list of entries in a form loads. These days, like right now, today, when we click on that and we load, the default is entries by all users in all groups. But maybe you wanted sightings in the last 14 days to be the default. There is a way that you can do that, and we'll look at that and some other things in the video about how to alter the screen itself and the settings that control how it's displayed.